Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me on a wintry afternoon in central London driving in the AMG G63, the noisy beast, probably not best suited to the city streets, but here we are. Now today I would like to talk about some of the best cars that I have ever driven. Now throughout my YouTube journey I've been lucky to experience getting behind the wheel of some of the greatest, rarest, most exclusive and special hypercars, megacars and supercars in the entire world. And today I would like to tell you the top 10 best supercars that I have ever driven. Now it's one of the first questions that so many people ask me. What is my favourite car? What is the best car I've driven? What is the best car I've ever filmed? Well today we will pick out some of those as we come around a corner and there just so happens to be a Lamborghini Huracan LP580 with a Corvette right behind it. That wasn't necessarily going to be on the list, but I've experienced Bugattis, Veyrons and Chirons, all sorts of different Koenigsegg's and Pagani's, a few different LaFerraris, McLaren P1s, Porsche 918 Spyders. So let's take a run through then the top 10 best supercars that I have ever driven. To kick off this list, as we cruise through the centre of London, we've got the leaves falling, that autumnal winter feeling. I am going to start with, I think, one of the internet's favourite cars. These aren't in any specific order, and right at the very end, I'm going to tell you as well about some of the cars that I dream of driving, some that are still on the bucket list. But car number one is going to be B14's Lamborghini Veneno Roadster. The Veneno Roadster, one of only 9 that they made, 3 coupes as well, but just check out this menacing Batmobile. Flip this up, fire it into life. This is really happening. This is actually really happening. Here we are then. And yes, I'm currently driving in automatic and in Strada as we crawl through Knightsbridge in central London in the Veneno Roadster. Wow! I'm driving at like 25 miles per hour and it sounds like I'm going about 100. To move on then from what is probably the most valuable car that up to this point I've ever driven, the Veneno Roadster. It's hard to put a price tag on it, but somewhere $5 to $10 million or so in total, and part of such an impressive collection. Well, the next car that I'd like to talk about is one of my personal favourites, and when I was driving one recently out in Miami, I talked about how it was my favourite car. Well, I got to drive one in pretty unusual circumstances with Greg B out in the Alps, in the Italian Alps in Cortina, driving in the Ferrari F50, and not just any F50, but a yellow F50 in the snow, chasing Greg in the Ferrari Enzo, joined also by a TDF and a Lusso. Could it get any better? It turns out that it's really hard to drive an Enzo on snow, or ice as it is. But here we are, here are the cars. It's convoy time in an F50, following Greg's Enzo. Oh my gosh, with some other good friends as well. This is like perfection. We're about to drive under a ski lift. I think I've died and gone to heaven. Oh, this is... If you can see my eyes, they're genuinely, I think, welling up. This is the greatest car thing I've ever done. I don't know what to say. Like, driving my dream car, my favourite car in the world. Following cars like this, on a road like this. Oh. And you keep doing this, and you keep doing this. 7,500 RPM. Oh my gosh. Whoa. Literally. The next little part of this adventure is to slide around the Enzo. I'm actually currently drifting an F50 in slow motion around a Ferrari Enzo. This is genuinely legit happening in slow motion, admittedly, because it's on snow. But are you serious right now? Well, if a Veneno Roadster and an F50 aren't an incredible way to get started, and this is bringing back some very, very special memories to me as well. Let's head to one of the ultimate cars in terms of engineering. We will go to the Bugatti corner and the Chiron. Now, I've driven two different Chirons before, but let's talk about the first experience, including a run on the Autobahn, to take in the effortless power that that car has. A 1,500 horsepower quad turbo 8-litre W16, an actual behemoth of an engine, a gigantic thing, and so much usability along with that performance. But the Chiron, there's nothing else quite like it.
Maybe we just give it a quick blast if there's nobody there.
For sure.
Because there's no speed limit on this road.
De-restricted Autobahn in Germany.
That was 363. That took what? Just a few seconds of full throttle?
Okay then, here we are. Driver's seat, and I'm sort of getting in delicately. This is where you feel like you could almost be driving in literally any car. It just drives completely normally.
It doesn't ask anything of you more than a normal car, does it?
No, and it feels it's easy to see around you, you can see everything. And away it goes, it just picks up and it launches you. And the rate of acceleration is so ferocious. As well as the Chiron, I've also driven a few different models of the Veyron, from the 16.4 Coupe to the Grand Sport, and also even the Grand Sport Vitesse WRC, the world record convertible, at the time the fastest convertible car in the entire world. But let's move from Molsheim in France over towards Modena in Italy to talk about Pagani, and in particular actually one very memorable night with Dan Amai out in California, where we took out two of his three Zondas, the two Zonda Cinques. I was driving the Roadster, we also had the Coupe. There are only 5 of each in the entire world. Those might even be more valuable than the Veneno, I'm not even sure, but a night to never forget, with both cars spitting fireballs as we cruised around the Californian roads. What a special night that really was. Oh yes, here we go. Same trip, I'm going to move from the Zonda Cinques to talk about one of my cars, my Ford GT. The Ford GT is such an incredible car in terms of its story, what it was built for, the victory at Le Mans, but it's also a car for me building so many memories with trips and adventures, taking it all around the USA, and I've driven that very car around London, around Silverstone, around the Nürburgring Nordschleife, down the Autobahns, through Times Square, New York, at Road Atlanta, in Miami, in Los Angeles, through Death Valley, Las Vegas, the Golden Gate Bridge, so many different places. And I know it's my own car, so should it really be on this list? But I think in terms of rarity, specialness, and maybe even value too, it stands out, and it's quite an incredible thing that I'm very lucky to have in my own garage. Still sounds ridiculous to be able to say that, but I can't do a top 10 cars and not include the Ford GT. And here we go then. New York opens up in front of me. That skyline, the number of skyscrapers right in front, also down towards Lower Manhattan. Here we are. This place is so bright. This was like the first place on my, I guess, hit list of places to go. Times Square, New York. And away we go. The ship lights are just mega as we come down again into the foxhole. Definitely substantially quicker on lap 2. But I'm going to give a dab of the brake going through here. Ears are popping as well, back on the throttle through the compression. Whoa, my brain feels like it's been rewritten. What? then, let's talk about another that I often feature in the list of my favourite cars ever, right behind the Ferrari F50 and just in front of another car that will be on this list later on, and that is the Porsche Carrera GT. Now, I've driven 3 or 4 different Carrera GTs, but one absolutely stands out from an adventure to the canyons in Los Angeles with Cyber Garage and his straight-piped CGT. Wow, there's something about a V10, but listen to a few small little blips here just to get a little feel for what this is like quickly. That's about 4,000 RPM. Up towards about 5,000. What? We go under a tunnel. What is this? This car. It just booms around us. Wow. Just wow. This is absolutely insane. This must be one of the greatest driving experiences of my life. The sounds when we go past the rocks. Sorry, I can't stop talking out of excitement. I'm like a giddy child. Child at Christmas properly right now. This is my element, a nice twisty road and an epic car like this. There's not much then that matches the sound of a straight-piped, naturally aspirated V10 with a manual gearbox when you can take off the roof panels. That Carrera GT, it is just a dream. I mean, any Carrera GT is a very, very special car, but a straight-pipe one, what more could I possibly say? But let's move on then to another car that actually belongs to someone I mentioned earlier on. We will again return to Dynamite, and this time we will be talking about the Koenigsegg Agera. The Agera is a mega car in terms of the power numbers. That's, I think, where a car has maybe 1345 horsepower or so in total. The Agera, it's 1500 to 1800 depending how the gearbox is working, because it doesn't have gears. It has direct drive, Koenigsegg's direct drive. The Agera is a hypercar in every sense of the word, and this particular one looked stunning. When I drove it, I didn't really know what was going on, other than that I was driving a Koenigsegg Agera, but completely thrown straight into it. Let's go out and drive. I like to call these the party mode. Literally, check this out. Double press, and the door opens automatically. We can open up the driver's side as well. Just pop that forwards. You can close them too, nice and easily. Double press again, and they will shut themselves back up. You can press this and start it up instantly. So it starts off the motor. The electrical motor is used for the starter. And what makes this even better is that I'm following the 2 final edition Agera RS's, Thor and Vader, together down the coast here. Spectacular scenery. Here we go. What a sound when you lift off and you get those whooshes. Just to the swooshes are just unbelievable. Into the tunnel. What a feeling. We can return then to the car that is 3rd place on my list of favourite cars I've ever driven, from the same manufacturer as the car that I'm currently driving. That is the Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG Black Series. Now, I've driven, I think, 3 SLS Black Series, well, 2 different cars, 1 twice, but that car, that's on my shortlist for cars I would love to add to my collection. It's the complete mix of driving dynamics, front mid-engine, mixed with a motorsport chassis, a sound from the 6.2 V8 that is pretty much unrivaled. And the way it looks, the gull-wing doors, everything about it, and I drove it pretty recently actually, during a very short visit to Germany, when I flew from Vegas to Germany and back to Vegas again. Yes, don't ask, that was very complicated, and got to enjoy that car out on some countryside roads. This is just about perfect, and the thing with this thing is that it really drives like a thoroughbred supercar, despite of course the engine being up front. The steering feel is fantastic. Yes, it's very firm, but the downshifts, driving in manual now, the feedback it gives you, and I am being aware of slightly damp tarmac on the roads. Those sounds though, it's so angry and aggressive. And yes, Yes, of course it is very fast as well, but it's the feedback, the rawness of it. The goalposts have very much moved, and the question is no longer if, but when. I am not going to be able to resist, at some point in time, adding one of these to the garage to enjoy the experience of the car. It is just me in a nutshell. It's such an epic, dynamic driving experience. It looks so good as well, the aggression of the thing. And then, just to drive it, every time I've driven this car, it has made me smile quite this much. And that says something. That tells you that that's what it's all about. And you know, I've said it many times, these driving experiences won't be around forever. So to enjoy them while we still can out on the roads like this. Slightly peculiarly, I have just realised that I'm still wearing sunglasses. It was actually sunny when I set off with the car to come out for this afternoon's drive. It is of course no longer very sunny at all. It is now very, very cloudy. Anyway, the SLS Black Series was an epic, epic car. I hope, fingers crossed, one day that can happen in the future. But moving on to another straight-piped car, one you might remember because I referenced the fact that it basically made my ears bleed, and this was Shmee150's Ferrari LaFerrari. Literally, if anybody could see me right now, I'm literally doing this with fear for what this is going to sound like.
Are you ready?
I'm ready, I'm ready. Sound, and look at it coming out. Look at this thing. It's time for the experience of the LaFerrari. And here we are. Goodness me, Manatino in race. The sound is just... And that's gently driving. This is not even being particularly aggressive with it. Savage, absolutely savage. And I lost my sunglasses, they fell off the back of my head. Again. So much power in this car. The sound though, the sound in the tunnel, even at slow speeds, it's just, I don't know how to describe it to be honest, because it's such a sweet symphony. It's a lovely, lovely noise. Sorry, Paul Pagani, you're about to be deafened. The boxes at the back. There's not much that matches the cold startup from that car. What a phenomenal sound, and inside the garage, so unbelievably aggressive. But let's move on then to the last item on today's list. The LaFerrari was number 9, the 10th, and I have saved my favourite till last. One of the, I think, best automotive experiences of my life. When I was out at the start of this year in Bahrain, at the Bahrain International Circuit, and well, there were some pretty spectacular cars involved, and the Collection 1, the owner of many of them, invited me to get behind the wheel of a dream poster car of mine from when I was younger, joined and chasing some other poster cars. So I was driving the Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR, chasing a Porsche 911 GT1, McLaren F1, Maserati MC12, Apollo IE, and a McLaren P1 out on track, and it wasn't planned. I didn't know it was coming. I was given about 5 minutes notice. If I could get in the CLK GTR, I could go out and drive it. I've got to do this in as dignified a way as possible. 1 foot in, take a step, 2nd foot in, and then we're going to be able to do this. In we get. Okay then, start it up. Wow! Listen to that! I can't believe this is happening! This is a dream! We're actually doing it! And look at that! The MC12 in all its majesty! race through a 911 GT1 at fairly decent speed around Bahrain International Circuit. The fans are just insane. Don't even really know where to begin. I think you can understand how excited I was about that. The CLK GTR, well, there are only 25 of them in the entire world. A very rare car, a very valuable car, a very significant car for me, and a very exciting evening on every front. Being out there with Supercars Club Arabia, also with the Collection 1. That was the last night of a trip out to the Middle East, and one that I'm never ever going to forget. So those are the top 10 cars that I've ever driven up to this point. So what is missing? What would I still like to drive? And there is one above all others that I cannot wait to one day experience, but I slightly fear that when and if I'm ever lucky enough to drive it, that might be the end, because I don't know what else I could do. And that car is the almighty McLaren F1. I think many of you could have guessed that was going to be the car that I said. The car from the mid-90s, the car that went to Le Mans in virtually road car form and came out victorious from the 24 hours. The iconic 3-seat configuration, the central driving position, but also being a 3-seater, and even the fastest car in the world until recently. So it had been set a speed record with Andy Wallace at the wheel of, I think, 242 miles per hour, and that was, well, a speed record way up until Koenigsegg achieved it with the Agera RS, and then of course recently Bugatti with the Chiron Super Sport 300 Plus going over 300 miles an hour. Again though, with Andy Wallace at the wheel. He is a legend, he is a title holder, he's also a Le Mans winner, he's a very nice guy. So, the McLaren F1, maybe one day. Of course, there are plenty of new cars, new hypercars I would love to experience. For example, the Apollo IE, with the sound that that car makes. The Bugatti Chiron Super Sport 300 Plus is right on that list. I've been lucky to drive as well Koenigsegg Agera RS, Pagani Huayra BC, so many different cars, LaFerrari Aperta, different variations. But there are new cars always coming out. I mean, imagine what the Aston Martin Valkyrie would be like, and the Valhalla as well. Imagine what the McLaren Speedtail would be like, and also the newly announced Elva, the Barchetta 2-seat open-top car. You've also got cars I've never driven, but I have passengered in, the SLR Sterling Moss. But I think one that's also very high on my list is the Mercedes-AMG 1, the car with a Formula 1 engine for the road. I would love to drive the AMG 1. I think it's still a little bit away from production, but the AMG 1, just because of that motorsport connection, it connects to the engine that has been victorious through so many Formula 1 titles. Anyway, this is quite a long list. I think from older cars, I could add a lot. You know, I've driven, I think, my dream classic in the form of the Mercedes 300 SL. Mercedes features quite prominently on this list. I've driven so many of those hypercars from my era, you know, the Enzos, the MC12s, the Zondas, the earlier Koenigsegg's, the CCX, CCXR, the Ageras. But for the ultimate, it's the McLaren F1. And then I think my dream future car is the AMG 1. Anyway, for now, that is it. Thank you very much for joining me today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this list and answer to that question: what are the top cars that I've ever driven? And there we had the top 10. Thank you very much for watching. That's it for now, though. I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!